Through the comments, I can see that most of my audience think that China's military strength has reached the point where it can challenge the United States. So that I, who is 100% Chinese, will be refuted by them when I say some shortcomings of China. In this video, let's objectively discuss the military comparison between China and the United States. I hope that those who have no military knowledge and no scientific knowledge will not be busy spraying people. You should go to the hospital to check your brain first to see if it can still work normally, such as those who think that the Houthi armed forces can severely damage the U.S. aircraft carrier. First of all, the quality of soldiers. China has 1.4 billion people, and every year when recruiting soldiers, they select the best people. Because the treatment of the Chinese army is good, you can also get a lot of compensation after retiring. And Chinese people are generally more patriotic, and joining the army is considered a glorious thing. The education level of Chinese soldiers has also improved rapidly, and a large number of highly educated talents have joined the army. The Chinese army is strictly trained and disciplined. On the other hand, the United States has a long history of military academies, and West Point Military Academy is world-renowned. Since the founding of the United States, it has basically been fighting, so officers are not only rich in theory, but also have sufficient combat command experience. It is not ruled out that there are many patriots among ordinary American soldiers, but unlike what Hollywood blockbusters promote, most American soldiers regard joining the army as a means of making a living, or even a means of obtaining citizenship. The United States has more than 300 million people, so there is no shortage of soldiers, but the education level of ordinary Americans is far lower than that of China. Here we are not talking about academic qualifications, but cognitive common sense. Many American high school students have a math level that is difficult to graduate from even middle school in China. China and the United States had a large-scale direct conflict in Korea. At that time, the Communist Party of China had just established a regime, and the Chinese Civil War had not yet ended. China's GDP was less than 1/10 of that of the United States, and the equipment level of the Chinese army was far lower than that of the United States. During the battle, the bravery of Chinese soldiers left a deep impression on the United States. Similarly, the technical and tactical level of American soldiers, especially the American artillery and aviation, impressed the Chinese. The two sides have experienced various confrontations such as mobile warfare, infiltration warfare, and positional warfare. In the end, the Chinese army withstood the pressure of the United States with greater casualties, and the two sides ceased fighting at the 38th parallel. China later assisted Vietnam and fought against the U.S. military, and had a better understanding of the technical and tactical level of the Vietnamese and U.S. troops. Later, the Chinese army also fought with the Vietnamese army, and fought a small-scale war with Vietnam on the border for 10 years, from 1979 to 1989. The Vietnamese army is generally more afraid of the Chinese army, especially the Chinese artillery. The United States was defeated by the Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese are not afraid of the United States to this day. You must know that the Chinese army at that time experienced the Cultural Revolution, the officers were severely purged, and the army was poorly equipped. Vietnam had a large number of captured American weapons and Soviet weapons. Therefore, in terms of personnel, China is definitely the winner. Those who boast that the U.S. military is invincible often ignore that they rely on the absolute advantage of military equipment to fight some weak and small countries. The United States has never played a good report card when facing East Asian countries. Even if Japan was not suppressed by technology and 2 atomic bombs were dropped, it would be difficult for the United States to completely defeat Japan. With an absolute firepower advantage, the U.S. military only played a 1-to-1 exchange ratio with the Japanese army in battles such as Iwo Jima. Second, military technology. The two sides are evenly matched in terms of the army, and both sides have a large number of advanced equipment. For example, in terms of tanks, China has the Type 99 and the United States has the M1. In terms of rockets, the United States has the HIMARS and China has the PHL. In terms of artillery, both sides are traditional powers. In terms of helicopters, China has the Z-10, Z-20, etc., and the United States has the Apache, CH-47, etc. In terms of transport aircraft, the United States C-40, C-130, etc. are well known, and China's Y-20 has also been in service, but the number is not as large as that of the United States. In terms of drones, both sides have their own advantages and disadvantages in the field of fixed-wing drones, but China has not only technical advantages over the United States in the most commonly used rotary-wing drones on the front line, but also cost advantages. Both Russia and Ukraine have purchased a large number of Chinese civilian drones and modified them for use. Therefore, the two countries have similar armies, with China having a slight advantage. In terms of air power, both sides have two fifth-generation fighters. In terms of air supremacy, let's talk about the fifth-generation fighters first. The United States has the F-22, and China has the J-20. In terms of the number of equipment, China has more than 200, slightly more than the U.S. military's F-22, and the J-20 is still in continuous production and improvement, while the F-22 has been discontinued. However, the U.S. military is equipped with a large number of F-35s, while China's corresponding J-35 has just been finalized and has not yet been put into service. In terms of fourth-generation fighters, the United States is equipped with a large number of F-15s and F-16s. Among them, the main air superiority fighter F-15 has superior performance and forms a high-low match with the F-16, and the number is also the largest in the world. Although China is equipped with a large number of Su-27 derivative series, that is, J-11, which forms a high-low match with the J-10, the Russian fighters perform poorly in actual combat, and Chinese fighters lack actual combat experience compared to the United States. In terms of bombers, the United States has the famous B-52, B-1, B-2, and the newly developed B-21, which have an absolute advantage over China. Although China is equipped with H-6 and is developing H-20, it will be difficult to catch up with the United States in the short term. Both sides also have other equipment such as refueling aircraft and electronic warfare aircraft. The U.S. Air Force is superior to China in both quality and quantity. Therefore, the United States is leading in the Air Force. In terms of the Navy, the number and tonnage of Chinese naval ships exceed those of the United States, but the quality of the United States is higher. China has 3 aircraft carriers, all of which are conventionally powered. But the United States has 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, and the tonnage, number of aircraft, and quality of Chinese aircraft carriers are not as good as those of the United States. The new destroyer 055 in China is stronger than any cruiser or destroyer in the United States, but the United States has nuclear submarines such as Los Angeles and Seawolf, which are more powerful than China's 093 or 095 and have more numbers. But China has a large number of conventional powered submarines, which the United States does not have, which can slightly ease the gap. In terms of carrier-based aircraft, the U.S. F-18 and F-35 are the most advanced carrier-based fighters on the planet, and China's J-15 is an improved version of the Su-33, with much worse performance. And China's J-35 naval version has not been released yet, and it should still be under development. China has a latecomer advantage in other functional ships, such as supply ships. Overall, the U.S. Navy is currently beating the Chinese Navy with a crushing advantage. But China is the world's factory and the world's largest shipbuilding country. The speed and quality of shipbuilding are far better than the United States. It is difficult for the United States to maintain its maritime hegemony. In terms of nuclear weapons, the United States has an overwhelming advantage in the number of nuclear warheads, with more than 5,000, second only to Russia. China has about 500, and it is said that it will increase to 1,000 by 2030. However, in the recent intercontinental missile test, the United States did not achieve the expected goal, but China hit the target with one shot. Moreover, China notified the United States before the launch and broadcast the entire process to the United States, which was purely a display of strength. The U.S. military said that the Chinese are very professional. Therefore, the reliability of the United States intercontinental missiles, these relics of the Cold War, needs further inspection. Just like the Americans' ability to land on the moon, it needs to be demonstrated again to deter China. Both sides have various launch methods, such as silos, launch vehicles, and ballistic missile nuclear submarines. It can ensure a second strike, so the comparison in this area is meaningless. A nuclear war between China and the United States is equivalent to the end of the world. In the field of space, China and the United States have strong satellite launch and anti-satellite capabilities. As mentioned earlier, the United States space technology has always been far ahead, until China also has its own global satellite positioning system, its own space station, and its own lunar rover to collect lunar soil. Moreover, China plans to land a man on the moon before 2030, competing with the U.S.'s 2026 moon landing plan. The U.S.'s 2025 moon return plan has been proven to be a boast. If it still cannot land on the moon by 2026, or even let China land on the moon first, its space hegemony will completely cease to exist, and its previous space achievements will be suspected of being fake by countless people. Therefore, the U.S. space power is currently ahead of China, but the Americans are under great pressure. In summary, the U.S. military technology is stronger than China, about 150. But the declining industry of the United States is increasingly unable to support the U.S. military hegemony. China will continue to expand its arsenal because China's weapons are 1/5 or even 1/10 of the same weapons of the United States, leaving the pressure to the United States. The Ukrainian war has allowed the Chinese to see the trump cards of NATO and Russia. If the United States and China go to war, they will experience a completely different experience from the past. The U.S. military, which is accustomed to fighting small and weak countries, will usher in a cognitive revolution. But Chinese netizens don't have to be complacent. If the Americans start a war first, it is possible to quickly defeat China. Moreover, the United States has pets like Taiwan, who is willing to be cannon fodder. The Americans are very smart and will not engage in direct war with China. Instead of challenging the United States, it is better to prepare for possible local wars.